Good morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is September 26, 2024, the day after a vote of non-confidence got denied. Yikes, not good. But lots of stuff came up out of yesterday, such as Justin Trudeau triggered by this apparent homophobic remark that was made, which is yet to actually be proven as to what was said. So yeah, we've got that going on. And also Justin Trudeau was given 4 chances, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 chances, unlike any person ever in the House of Commons history, to make a retractment off of unparliamentary language for making the homophobic or accusation, as well as using the word crap. And he did not do that until the 4th try, which he then apologized for using the word crap, but not the homophobic accusation. Kind of crazy. So I said that I'll be starting a petition to have Greg Fergus mute button removed or something along the lines, and I'll stay true to that, folks. There's signpetition.org or whatever. Those aren't really recognized by Canadian government or in Parliament. So there's an actual way to get a real petition pushed through to government, like an actual recognized Canadian government petition. So that's the avenue I'm going. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm just one dude trying to figure this out. I got some people kind of helping me and advising me. But again, getting it actually established, I think it needs like a signature, or it needs to be brought forward by an MP. So I'm going to have to get in contact with my local MP, I guess, to try and have Greg Fergus's mute button removed, his privileges or something like that. So it's going to be crazy, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. We had a tremendously successful live stream yesterday. A lot of people, lots of likes, 1,000 subscribers. 1,000 subscribers yesterday. The community is phenomenal, so thank you and shout out to all of you for participating in the chat and just participating in general. Now they're about to do statements by members, and I had to pause it, so we're trailing a couple minutes behind here. Sorry I'm late to the stream, guys. I was also attending to my kids, so my bad about that. But Greg Fergus is he's given a speech about something. I saw it happen. I hit pause. So we're going to play it, and then we're going to fast forward to the live view and catch up. So not to worry, everybody. Here we go.
Order raised on September 18th, 2024 by the member for Saanich Gulf Islands and September 19th by the member of New Westminster Burnaby concerning disrespectful and offensive remarks. At the same time, the Chair will offer some comments on certain actions taken during the second of these sittings, as promised on Monday. Referring to statements made during question period on September 18th, the member for Saanich Gulf Islands asked the Chair to review the use of what she termed offensive nicknames for Canadians who are not members of the House. She suggested that this name-calling may have breached Standing Order 11.
Carbon tax, Carney.
New Westminster Burnaby called the Chair's attention to the enforcement of Standing Order 18, arguing that the Leader of the official opposition had broken rules by making disrespectful and offensive remarks about the members for Belleuil-Chambly and Burnaby South, as well as other members. J'aborderai dans un premier temps.
I will begin with the point of order raised by the member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
So we are
I must
pause a little back so we can actually fast forward a little bit.
And I quote, except in not only from name
to ordinary individuals in their statements, not always to praise them. For example, the names of provincial politicians, prominent persons, and other public figures are regularly mentioned without causing controversy. Furthermore, members are always required to choose their words carefully when they are discussing matters pertaining to individuals who do not have an opportunity to respond to their criticisms.
Yeah, it's about
for the
name-calling people that aren't in the House.
Referenced in her point of order, he is quite plainly a public figure engaged in political and partisan debates. We should not be surprised that he is the subject of comment or criticism regarding past decisions or positions. So long as the tone and wording of members' comments remains sufficiently respectful, the Chair will refrain from intervening. Si l'article 18 du règlement
and I quote,
to remind members of the purpose of question period. The Chair remains very concerned about the sequence of events that took place at that time, as well as a tendency in recent days to use overly personal criticism and insults. This tendency has been seen on both sides of the House. As indicated on page 624 of the House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 3rd edition, and I quote, "In dealing with unparliamentary language, the Speaker takes into account the tone, manner, and intention of the member speaking, the person to whom the words at issue were directed, the degree of provocation, and most important, whether or not the remarks create disorder in the chamber, pardon me. Thus, language deemed unparliamentary one day may not be deemed unparliamentary on another day.
What?
Expressions which are considered unparliamentary when applied to an individual member have not always been considered so when applied in a generic sense or to a party." Unquote.
The remarks made that day by the Leader of the Opposition spawned disorder. They targeted one individual in particular, and they were excessively scornful and personal. In the
same stance, by urging, and I quote, all its members to behave with civic-mindedness and respect towards their colleagues in order to allow a truly constructive debate in the interests of democracy and the common good. Unquote. After last Thursday's sitting, the Chair has reached out to the Leader of the Official Opposition and to the member for Burnaby South. The Chair offered them the opportunity to make amends. The member from Burnaby South did so, and he informed the Chair that he will act differently in the future. I'm grateful for his commitment. The Chair has yet to receive such an indication from the Leader of the Official Opposition. I indicated that, failing to hear from him, I would request a formal withdrawal of his comments. Otherwise, the Chair would remove some questions during question period today. Party leaders have a heightened responsibility to be role models. Vigorous debate and even profound disagreement are possible without resorting to such comments or actions. The Chair therefore invites members to be more judicious in their choice of words and behaviour. If they are not, the Chair will have no choice but to discipline those members who persist in their unparliamentary behaviour. I thank all members for their attention.
I see lots of dingus comments in the chat.
comments, the honourable member.
All right, so we'll fast forward to
speak to the chamber. My colleague from Calgary Nose Hill still had about 3 minutes left of questions to be asked of her, and we just wanted to know what's happening with that particular time.
Precisely, I'm going to the honourable member from Shefford to finish her question, and then it will go to the member from Nose Hill for a response. Honourable Deputy Shefford.
The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, can I start over, given that... okay. So, I'd like to thank my colleague for Calgary Nose Hill for her speech.
All right.
I'll try to be more brief. She said that some people need help.
You miss the old House of Commons, House of Canada, where they used to swear at each other?
Does she consider oil companies
That'd be pretty wild right now,
being
eh?
among those who need support and subsidies?
I think before the stream started, Shauna gave a super chat. New member Shauna, $10. Thank you for creating this space, Jasper. It's nice to be able to communicate
The honourable member for Calgary Nose
with
Hill.
Canada first-minded people.
A bright and vibrant
Thanks,
economy
Shauna.
in every sector, including the natural resource sector. I don't agree with the assertion of this Liberal government that the way that they have addressed this issue but completely failed is by giving countless untold billions of dollars in waste to their corporate friends. And this is what they're now, I think what they're now doing with Mark Carney as well. So, you know, like today in Industry Committee, we tried to pass a motion to just look at the government's EV strategy, given that they've committed billions of dollars to that industry, and we're seeing these companies essentially say they're not going to set up shop here. So that's so many jobs lost, such a big issue in terms of meeting Canada's climate objectives, and there's no scrutiny on that. So overall, this is why I think that my colleagues should support this motion. We need to have an election so that every political party can set out their visions for the country and that we can move away from this reckless Liberal government's waste. Thank you.
Questions and comments? The member for Edmonton Strathcona. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank my colleague for her speech today. It is unbelievable to me that she is a grandmother. I'm not accepting that is a possibility. However, she did list a number of ways that we can identify that the Liberal government has lost their moral authority. But I have to say, for most Canadians, they must be listening to this and thinking, you know, Liberal Tory, same old story, because I also can go through an incredible list of scandals that we saw under the government that she was part of, the Harper government. I think of the Senate scandals with Mike Duffy. I think of election activities where they had to plead guilty to overspending. Maxime Bernier, who is a scandal all in his own right.
Oh!
The Afghan detainees.
That's not a name you really hear in the House of Commons anymore.
And the contempt rulings that we saw with this government, the G8 funding in Huntsville, like I could go on. Like, how does she expect Canadians to believe that the Conservatives would be any less corrupt than the Liberals have been?
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding the moral equivocation. I don't think anybody in this place can argue that this government is a paragon of ethical standards. So but I think the key difference is this member has voted time and time again, knowing that these ethical standards have been brought, she's propped them up. And that's the problem here. So it's time. It's time for an election. Canadians need to have a choice. This government's time is up. We need a reset. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, before we go to statements by members, I believe the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary
Uncle Brock taking his seat
has a few comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising on the same point of order that I had raised a couple of days ago. The standing order specifically is 116. Now, that standing order was put in place with the express purpose of protecting the rights of committee members to participate in debate on motions before those motions are put to a vote. It does not matter if the chair claims that he didn't see my hand. The point of the matter is that my hand was raised and the onus was on the chair to ensure that he canvassed the room and made sure that he was fulfilling his obligation as chair to ensure that debate had actually come to a complete conclusion. The standing order in question is in place to protect the rights of members to speak to a motion before it is voted on, regardless of whether the chair accidentally or on purpose does not acknowledge the request of the member to speak. It is designed as a fail-safe to protect members. The onus is on the chair of committees to confirm that there are no members that are wanting to participate in the debate before the question is called. So, Chair, I just wanted to add that to my original point of order. Thank you.
I think on the same point of order, the honourable member for Perth Wellington.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the same point, I was in that committee meeting. The chair did indeed pause after the final person had spoken and looked around the room. He then called the question, as was his right, because no other member had risen or had raised their hand. Indeed, after that it was challenged by the chair or challenged by the member, but all opposition members, including the Bloc and the NDP, confirmed the chair's ruling. Therefore, since chairs or committees are responsible for their own affairs, the committee itself, a majority of all parties, confirmed that indeed the chair did act appropriately, and I indeed will claim that I did not see the member raise their hand, nor did anyone else around that table.
Okay, and I know that that the table is looking at this specifically. Normally, the House does not influence itself in the actions of committees, but I know we're looking at this one closely. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Nepean.
Oh.
Speaker, 39 years back,
usually Greg Fergus jumps back in now.
Was blown up mid-air from a bomb planted by Canadian Khalistan extremists. It killed 329 people and is the largest mass killings in Canadian history. Even today, the ideology responsible for this terrorist attack is still alive among few people in Canada. 2 Canadian public inquiries have found Khalistan extremists responsible for the bombing of Air India flight. Now, there is a petition on Parliament portal asking for a new inquiry promoting conspiracy theories promoted by Khalistan extremists. Mr. Bal Gupta,
Hey, folks.
whose wife Rama was
Use this
killed
time
in this
now,
attack.
if you haven't yet already, to smash that like button and subscribe.
It is deeply frustrating.
Over 2,000 people in here. We should have 1,000 likes. You know what I'm saying?
It is all garbage. It's an attempt to gain publicity
I mean, you don't
and
have to
support
put
for
people
terrorist activities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Tobique Matiquak.
Mr. Speaker, recently my sister and her boyfriend were in a serious motorcycle accident and both sustained substantial injuries. Our family is so grateful that this did not end in total tragedy. We're so thankful to those who walk with others through the shadows of adversity. Those concerned citizens like Mark and Nancy and Steve and Wanda who stayed and comforted them while help was on the way. The paramedics and first responders who treated them at the scene. The doctors and nurses who provided exceptional care during their recovery. The pastors, family, and friends who were there with us with words of encouragement, prayers, and sometimes much needed coffee. Special thanks to my other sister, Amy, who has been by Julie's side through it all. There's an ancient writing that perhaps sums it up best when it says, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for thou art with me." Thank you to all those who walk through the shadows of adversity, pain, and despair with all of us. It means so much more than words can ever express. And thanks especially to the one who promised to be with us through it all and to never leave us nor forsake us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Certain all members extend their prayers and thoughts to your family, especially to your sister. The honourable member from Scarborough Centre.
Mr. Speaker,
Was Greg Fergus just talking, or did they just swap him in?
Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon in recent days. Among them are 2 Canadians. I send my condolences to the loved ones of all those lost. I represent a large Lebanese Canadian community, and they are deeply worried for their family and loved ones. Israeli officials say they are ready for a ground invasion that will kill even more innocent civilians.
Yeah, they're calling for a ceasefire.
In Gaza, in West Bank, and in Lebanon. The violence must end. The Netanyahu government must stop its escalations. Canada's words are not enough. There must be a ceasefire and consequences for Israeli government officials that have expressed support for genocide and violence. A clear and unequivocal 2-way arms embargo with no loopholes. And as part of a 2-state solution, Canada must recognize the Palestinian state now. We must stand for peace.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi, Bay James, Nunavik, EU. Today is the 25th National School Support Staff Day. Every year, school support staff contribute to student success. They ensure a safe and healthy environment, they support teachers, they help with school administration, and they take care of school facilities. There are more than 80 different jobs divided into 4 broad categories. The first is administrative support. This includes administrative officers, school organization workers, administration and IT technicians, and all those who handle
Dan with the $3 sticker.
Second category,
Thank you
manual
for that, Dan.
support, such as caretakers, certified maintenance workers, pipe fitters, and electricians, who keep schools safe for our children. Third category, special education, which includes all those who look after students with special needs. And finally, fourth, daycare services, all educators and support staff in daycares. Thank you to all of these people who work so hard every single day to give all of our children a better future. The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt.
Président, le 25 septembre, l'anniversaire du lever de drapeau franco-ontarien, ici pour la première fois à l'Université de Sept en 1975. Ce drapeau est un symbole de notre histoire, de notre culture,
He's going to have to redo it.
que nous ressentons. En tant que secrétaire parlementaire aux langues officielles,
The translator's not,
de nombreux
not
organismes qui
talking.
travaillent pour faire vivre la francophonie, l'ACFO du Grand Sudbury, les centres de santé, les clubs Richelieu, l'Alliance des femmes de la francophonie, les clubs d'amitié des aînés, le Carrefour francophone. Hier, dans Nickel Belt, nous célébrons la construction d'une nouvelle école catholique à Val-Thérèse qui ouvrira en 2025. Elle accueillera les élèves de l'école Sainte-Thérèse, Notre-Dame, Saint-Joseph de Hanmer. Quelle réussite! J'invite tous les francophones et francophones à célébrer notre langue et à continuer de renforcer notre...
I don't mind it. I don't mind the French without the translation.
À nos alliés
I don't mind at all.
et multilingues pour leur soutien précieux. Bonne célébration à tous.
The honourable member from Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, taxes
Yeah, that was a baby crying.
costs are up, crime is up, and now time is up. Yesterday, Canadians witnessed the
Shauna with the $5 sticker. Thank you so much, Shauna.
as they voted to continue propping
Carolyn,
Prime Minister.
new channel member with the $5 super chat.
They
I was at the CFL game on Friday and they banned my Canadian flag. WTF.
More chaos
Oh.
and suffering on Canadians while they wait to get their pensions. This
That's
NDP
gross.
Liberal coalition has doubled the cost of housing, made it easier for criminals to get back on the street, and allowed the cost of living to skyrocket. No matter how bad it gets for Canadians, the NDP Liberal coalition doesn't care. They know Canadians are fed up, but are refusing to listen. Conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Let Canadians have their say and call a carbon tax now.
That's right.
The honourable member from Milton.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. Today is Sneak It In Day, so Participation is here in Ottawa to remind us all to make room in our busy schedules to sneak in some movement.
You guys in the live chat are freaking funny.
Preventative medicine for our minds, our bodies, and our communities that keep us all
You know what?
healthy.
One of the only people to bring a baby to work is Jagmeet, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is his kid
Focus.
or him.
Proud that our government has made physical activity a national priority, reducing healthcare costs and making Canada a healthier place to live, work, learn, and play.
I thought $10 a day childcare was
Pillars of my campaign,
good.
and ensuring
Does
that we can
Jagmeet
all
want to use the government program?
common ambitions is important to me. I've organized cross-party runs, soccer games, and yesterday all political parties came together to play cricket, because when we play and do healthy activities together, it reminds us that what we have in common is bigger and more important than what we might disagree on. Thanks to Participation for reminding us all that moving Canadians forward will lead to better health and prosperity for all Canadians.
The honourable member from Surrey Centre.
Mr. Speaker, it is with great sadness that I stand here today to share the loss of Wally Legion Branch 229 President and veteran Tony Moore. Tony was a dedicated advocate for veterans, served as president for as long as I can remember, and he was instrumental in the building
We play hockey in Canada, not cricket. Yeah.
full-service veterans facility, the Wally Veterans Village. Opened in
I feel that.
This
I feel that.
groundbreaking initiative was launched thanks to Tony's deep understanding
Shaw Terrell with the
of the support
$5
veterans truly
sticker.
needed. He tirelessly advocated
Little message attached. It's a dancing emoji thing. Thank you.
care
I
they
appreciate
deserve.
that.
Above all, Tony was a great friend to me, someone who was always frank.
The T-Bosh
I want to
with the
extend my
279.
condolences
Board of
to
Education
Tony's
doesn't
family,
trump
friends,
parental
and all
rights.
members at the Wally Legion.
That's correct.
Tony will be greatly missed, but his legacy of service
It's honest to God making me consider,
forgotten.
and making my wife consider too, homeschooling. I'm down for homeschooling.
The honourable member from Kamloops.
My wife is on the fence about it, but she's the one that's,
After 9 years of this
increasingly
government, taxes are up, corruption
brushing up to that idea more and more.
time is up. Canadians want an election to decide the country's direction and how their money is used. While Canadians line up at food banks and deal with a worsening housing crisis, the Prime Minister decided to use their money to purchase a $9 million luxury condo for his personal friend. This comes at a time when young Canadians are worried that they may never realize the dream of home ownership. But Canadians are not without hope, Mr. Speaker. An election is coming soon. Then Canadians can hold this government accountable for driving up costs while Liberal insiders benefit. Only a Conservative government will cut the carbon tax and end the abuse of tax dollars.
Here, here.
The Honourable Member for Laval, Les Îles.
Mr. Speaker, Lebanon is bleeding. The entire country is currently in intensive care unit. The population of the country appeals to the international community to intervene, put an immediate end to the hostilities, and save civilian and innocent lives. Every human being has the right to live in dignity, irrespective of their corner of the globe. Killing innocent
When you have something so important to say,
on both sides.
why do you have to look at your script?
The hospitals in Lebanon are overstretched and lack the capacity to treat such a massive number of patients. As such, the Lebanese request that our government contribute to demanding an immediate cessation of hostilities and emphasize the need to keep the airport operational. The Lebanese community is hoping that Canada will stand up and champion Canadian values on the global stage. Lebanese people don't want war. Government of Lebanon doesn't want war. We want to live in peace. We want to live in security and to see peace spread and prevail in all of...
Whoa, what do you mean we? What do you mean we, bro? You're in Canada. You're a Canadian MP. What do you mean we?
After 9 years of this soft on crime coalition, costs are up, taxes are up, crime is up, extortion is up, and now time is up. Extortion has skyrocketed 357% across Canada. It's easy for criminals to commit crimes, get bail, and go out and re-offend again because of this Liberal NDP government's soft on crime policies. In Alberta, extortion is up 409%. Recently in Calgary, disturbing stories have emerged of armed criminals committing extortions and kidnappings against newcomers, children's families, and businesses. The leader of the NDP, the Prime Minister, and both Liberal MPs from Alberta voted against Common Sense Conservative Bill C-381 on extortions, so they could keep this Liberal NDP Prime Minister in power and protect the NDP leader's $2.2 million pension. Common Sense Conservatives are the only party standing up and protecting victims, while this Liberal NDP government has become the party of protecting criminals.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. There were some W's down in the chat for that.
From Cypress Hills, Grasslands.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. Taxes are up for everyone, and in Saskatchewan, our hospitals and schools will pay $380 million in carbon taxes alone. This is money that should be used to hire doctors, nurses, technicians, teachers, and educational assistants. But instead, it is being used to line the pockets of the Prime Minister's elitist friends like Mark Carney. In Saskatchewan, we have seen this act.
Oh, they're stopping the carbon tax, Carney.
Ben Trudeau as Prime Minister, healthcare took a major hit in my province, with hospitals and clinics being forced to close or reduce services. So yes, Mr. Speaker, time is up.
W with the mustache. I know that.
Support to the Prime Minister, just like he did the other 24 times that we voted to axe the tax. If the NDP truly supports healthcare and education, they would end their costly coalition and vote with us to call a carbon tax election just like Canadians want. It's clear, Mr. Speaker, only Conservatives are on Saskatchewan's side, and we will axe the tax for good.
The honourable member from Pierre.
Mr. Speaker, this summer I visited dozens of organizations that receive Canada Summer Jobs funding. 223 youth in our city gained, in our community I should say, gained meaningful jobs through this federal program. 64 organizations received over $1 million investments.
Oh, look at that. We got some members. New members. Dan, welcome to the membership. Thank you. Wes, new member. Thank you. And Tim Smith, welcome. Thanks for that, guys. I appreciate that.
I had the pleasure of visiting and meeting with some key organizations.
So many new channel members in the past couple of days. Holy smokes.
Community pools like Briarwood and Fairview. And Elm Park.
The West Island Association for the Intellectually Handicapped, which supports adults with disabilities. Des Banques Alimentaires.
Food banks like On Rock and the West Island Assistance Fund. They help families in need.
Of worship and cultural centers like the...
Yeah, his tie's crooked.
These groups are dedicated to supporting youth, to developing our community. Thank you so much for all you do.
Singh did bring his child as a prop again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, on September 30th, we mark the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Together, we honor the survivors of residential schools, and we mourn the thousands of children who never returned home. We have a legal and moral obligation to address the ongoing harms to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, to acknowledge what happened in residential schools as genocide, and to facilitate a path for healing. The government must do more. One important step would be to pass the MP from Winnipeg Centre's bill that combats residential school denialism. Constituents will be participating in the annual reconciliation ride.
Chat, I'm going to mute her. I'm going to mute her. So earlier today,
leaders in our community,
or I think it was this morning, the NDP tried to table a motion to make it illegal, to make it criminal, to deny residential school. They would criminalize residential school denialism. Like, that's freaking crazy. That's insane. I've never seen anything like that.
The Honorable
criminalize residential school denialism.
In 2024,
that's so dangerous.
This year,
you're not allowed an opinion anymore.
The association.
Look, the government's allocated tens of thousands, tens of millions of dollars to residential school
of seniors
searches for the missing bodies, right?
Years of struggle and commitment together for the right of seniors.
And they've actually cut back.
This is an opportunity to
they cut back this year on those funds
to the future with determination. Since its creation,
criminalize, dude. Criminalize it. You go to jail for saying that you
fighting injustice and
where's the proof?
With vigor and conviction.
Now, it hasn't been passed, but they're trying to pass
celebrate the commitment and solidarity of its members and partners. I'd also like to mention that AQDR is a valuable ally of Bill C-319, which the Bloc is proposing to eliminate the unacceptable inequity created by the government since people 75 and over and people 65 to 74 do not receive the same amount of old age security. Together, let's put an end to this age-based discrimination. Happy 40 years.
The Honourable Member from Niagara Falls.
Speaker, after 9 years of this costly NDP Liberal coalition, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and their time is up. Through this coalition, the NDP leader has sold out workers and residents in my community, which has resulted in higher taxes, balloon food costs, doubling the housing costs, and unleashed crime and chaos in our once safe streets. Their joint plan to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre will literally drive Canadians to food banks. Yet, sadly, this NTP leader has voted 24 times in support of this tax. And what are the results? Just over 1 million people visited a food bank in Ontario over the past year, an increase of 25%. In my community, Project Share reports that 1 in 8 residents has had to visit a food bank. Speaker, Canadians need a carbon tax election now to decide between this costly coalition of NDP Liberals or common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
The Honourable Member from Vancouver Quadra.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise on behalf of Vancouver Quadra constituents to defend carbon pricing.
Chris Van with the $5 in response to that Liberal who's talking with the crooked tie. His tie is as straight as the Liberal truth. That's funny as hell. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
20 years ago, as BC's Environment Minister, I laid the groundwork for BC's Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, which fosters innovation, economic development, and emission reductions through carbon pricing. Canada's national carbon pricing is equally a fair, efficient way to reduce emissions, and like British
if you guys haven't yet already, smash that like button.
8 of every 10 Canadians
we almost got 1,000 likes.
System get more money back.
It helped push the stream out a little further.
Sadly, Conservative and now NDP leaders reject carbon pricing. Shame on them, working to make carbon pollution free again. Mr. Speaker, we must price it to reduce it.
Colleagues, as I've indicated in my ruling earlier today, the Chair has offered the Leader of the Official Opposition the opportunity to make amends regarding the words he used last week, or else I would remove questions from him during question period today. Having not received such a commitment on his part, and the member having not withdrawn his comments, I will therefore remove 3 questions from the Leader of the Official Opposition in the opening round today.
Whoa!
Collègue.
Wait, what?
Chers collègues.
Colleagues, as I've indicated in my ruling earlier today, the Chair has offered the Leader of the Official Opposition the opportunity to make amends regarding the words he used last week, or else I would remove questions from him during question period today. Having not received such a commitment on his part, and the member having not withdrawn his comments, I will therefore remove 3 questions from the Official Opposition Leader in the opening round today.
Oral questions.
Oral questions. Questions orales. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, soon to be next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre.
Mr. Speaker, who could be against the following motion that given that for 9 years the government has doubled housing costs, taxed food, punished work, unleashed crime, and is the most centralizing government in Canadian history, the House has lost confidence in the government and offers Canadians the option to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Conservative leader has a major problem. He claims to be the greatest expert in the world on monetary policy, but he didn't even read the beginning of the first chapter of Economics 101, which says that the basic rule to avoid inflation and to have the central bank reduce inflation is to not interfere with the central bank. When is he going to apologize for being both an expert and the most incompetent of all the monetarists in the world?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, at least someone over there thinks about monetary policy. Mr. Speaker, who would be against the following motion? That, given that, after 9 years, the government has doubled housing costs, taxed food, punished work, unleashed crime, and is the most centralizing government in Canadian history, the House has lost confidence in the government and offers Canadians the option to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There's a very simple answer to his question as to who's opposed to that motion. Canadians.
Canadians didn't vote yesterday. You dictators did.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. The Liberals have until October 29th to improve OAS for those aged 74 and under and to protect supply management. They need to pass Bill C-319 and Bill C-282. Why these two measures? Well, first of all, because it's good for Quebecers, but also there's consensus in this House. The Liberals, the Conservatives, and the NDP have already agreed to this. So why leave Quebecers waiting when we could make gains for Quebec? Will the government meet our demands for seniors and farmers? Yes or no? The Honourable Minister for Seniors. Mr. Speaker, the member for La Prairie is very, very behind when it comes to support for seniors. He voted against every measure that's been taken in this House, supported by members to help seniors, including the most vulnerable seniors in Canada. And I would like to know from the member for La Prairie, what does he say to the 6,200 people in his own riding who have joined the federal dental care program? What does he say to them when they ask him why he voted against that? The Honourable Member for La Prairie. If they continue like this, they're going to have to answer. They're going to have to ask a lot of questions next year, Mr. Speaker. So, next October 29th, maybe instead of playing partisan games, this government should get to work. The Bloc Québécois demands are clear, positive, and have agreement in this House. The Liberals have a very simple choice. They could either help seniors and farmers, or they could choose to respond with things like that and sabotage their own government. Will they survive by helping Quebecers, or will they die by their partisan swords? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And indeed, the Bloc Québécois and other members in this House can choose to sabotage the efforts of the Canadian government to help seniors in his own riding. 7,400 seniors in his riding have signed up, and many of them are receiving for the first time or the first time in many years dental care. Accessible, affordable dental care, investing in housing.
It's costing us billions of dollars.
Conservative leader who says that Quebec's municipalities are incompetent and who wants to tear up our agreement with Quebec. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, Pascal, a single mother from Hull, wrote in an open letter, I don't think I'll ever be able to buy a house. I'm afraid that my youngest child will never be able to own her own home. I can't change apartments. Rent has gone up so much since I moved in, and the housing costs in my neighborhood have gone up by over 150%. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals and the Conservatives themselves caused this housing crisis. Why do they want people like Pascal to pay the price?
Call an election,
Minister of Public Services and Procurement. I'd like to thank my colleague, who is a strong defender of social and affordable housing in Quebec, for his question. But he knows, like me, to what extent the Conservative leader's policy would be damaging for Quebecers. He doesn't. He hasn't stopped attacking Quebec's municipalities. He's called them incompetent when they're in the middle of building 8,000 new affordable housing units. The Conservative leader built 6 homes all the time he was housing minister.
The honourable member from Edmonton-Griesbach.
Another summer has passed and not one single home for Indigenous people have been built. The Liberals promised to deliver an urban, rural, and northern...
You had a chance to vote against it yesterday.
Still no funding and still no shovels in the ground. Delay, broken promise after broken promise. That's the Liberal way. Meanwhile, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people continue to live in moldy, overcrowded conditions or on the street. Why do the Liberals keep Indigenous people waiting for the homes they need now?
Fun fact, Liberal MPs have not stepped foot on Indigenous lands to talk with any chiefs.
Proud to be part of a government that understands by Indigenous for Indigenous housing, and that's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker, by launching the $4 billion urban, rural, and northern housing strategy.
False promises to farm votes.
$100 million has been dispensed through an organization led by Indigenous leaders, determining how best to use those funds so that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people have the kinds of housing and supports they need in every city in this country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Ago, I asked the government who could be against a motion pointing out that this government's doubled housing costs, tax food, punish work, and unleash crime to give Canadians the chance to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. And she said, Canadians are against all of those things. If that's the case, then why won't she let them decide in a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's a little sad that the Leader of the Opposition, having just lost a vote of non-confidence in the government yesterday, is putting forward the exact same motion today. I think it shows his desperation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's not desperation, it's what Canadians want.
No, in fact, the motion specifically demonstrates that this government, this NDP Liberal government, has doubled housing costs. I found it interesting that the NDP has now discovered that they doubled housing costs. A second ago, a Montreal MP stood up to point to a young woman, Pascal, who can no longer afford to rent, much less to own, after housing costs have tripled in that city. When I was housing minister, rent was $700 in Montreal, and we built almost 200,000 units. Mr. Speaker, why can't the NDP put their actions where their words are and vote for a carbon tax? The
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
These slogans are clever, but they are empty, Mr. Speaker. It's empty rhetoric on the other side as always. In fact, he should take a look at the CMHC's report from today that puts a spotlight on Montreal, 106% increase in rental construction. Why is that, Mr. Speaker? Because GST has been waived by this government to ensure greater supply, to incent builders during a difficult time. He has no idea how to incent that sector. He's good at running around the country and insulting mayors, putting a spotlight on the homeless, but coming up with no ideas on that. It's more right-wing populism. They have nothing to say, Mr. Speaker.
Come on, Pierre, clap back.
The official opposition.
In a carbon tax election, if that's true.
Unfortunately, the Bloc Québécois is telling Quebecers, wait. If you can't pay your bills, just wait. If you can't buy a home, after 9 years of this Prime Minister, just hang on. If you're afraid of going out on the street because of crime that the Bloc Liberals have unleashed in our streets, in Quebec, a province that is at a breaking point because of immigration. They're just saying, hang on. Quebecers don't need to wait. They don't need to wait, Mr. Speaker. They need to choose a new government based on good common sense.
Let the people decide.
Gonna have this.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the priority of our government is to deliver for all Quebecers and all Canadians, Mr. Speaker. That includes daycare spaces, a dental care program, historic housing investments, Mr. Speaker. In the meantime, what are the Conservatives concentrated on? Well, as we saw in the Journal de Montréal this week, Conservative MPs are being paid to go to Florida to sermonize on the importance of banning abortion and teaching creationism. You can't invent that, Mr. Speaker. They should be ashamed.
Even though members are not recognized on the floor and they shouldn't be speaking on the floor, I always invite them to be very mindful of the accusations that they make to other members.
Yeah. Where's the proof?
Taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, people across Northern Ontario are struggling to fill their gas tanks. Young professionals cannot find an affordable place to live, and our communities are less safe. Mr. Speaker, these are all reasons why Canadians deserve a carbon tax election where they can vote for our common sense plan. But the NDP continue to support this government, Mr. Speaker, denying Canadians that opportunity. Why is this Prime Minister so afraid of facing a carbon tax election?
Hey man, the bloc did threaten an election before the new year.
Want to take away the rebate to Canadians, they'll have to explain that to Canadians, Mr. Speaker. What they'll also have to explain at some point, Mr. Speaker, is that they lost 800,000 affordable homes when they were in office. That minister, former Minister of Housing, who's now the leader of the opposition, went around, had no plan on housing, never mentioned homelessness once, and when it came time to vote in favor of ensuring zoning changes at the local level through federal dollars that would incent that change, he voted against. They all did. They don't care about those young people that the member just mentioned. They never cared. It's more right-wing populism, Mr. Speaker.
What are you talking about?
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Bloc Québécois showed its true colours by putting this Liberal Prime Minister on life support. They voted for a centralizing government that has a terrible record when it comes to public safety. Since 2015 in Quebec, the number of auto thefts has gone up by 185%.
Even the Premier of Quebec
firearm offences are up by 146%.
For the Bloc to vote for an election.
Recognize that their policies have created a major public safety problem across the country and specifically in Quebec?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the investments we're making to make our communities safe. In fact, we are moving forward on banning some of the most dangerous weapons, over 1,500 assault-style weapons that are designed to kill. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives get upset because they're sent
no such thing as an assault-style weapon in Canada.
Instead of keeping Canadians safe, in particular women who are disproportionately affected by gun violence. Mr. Speaker, it's a shame for Conservatives to stand up while voting against these measures.
$67 million on a gun buyback program, and you haven't done squat.
Give
me a break.
Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Violence with firearms is up by 181%. But it's not hunters, it's street criminals with guns that are coming across the border. The money that's being invested should be at the border, and that's what a Conservative government will do. How can this government explain this weakness, and why are they still attacking hunters?
These people are just so freaking dumb. Let's ban all cars because people drink and drive.
Mr. Speaker, I would invent my colleague to be honest with Quebecers because he knows very well that it's not the weapons of hunters that are being banned. It's assault weapons that are designed for war, Mr. Speaker, and which are being used by street gangs.
Does not exist in Canada. You can't legally buy military-style weapons in Canada.
They're the main victims of gun violence across Canada and in Quebec are women. So if he's against our assault weapon ban, that's particularly shameful, particularly in Quebec after Polytechnique.
You can't buy assault-style weapons, military-style weapons in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Quebecers have told us time and time again they're worried about the cost of living and living conditions for seniors. That's why we presented our ultimatum for October 29th. The Liberals don't have the right to abandon seniors aged 65 to 74, given the rising cost of living. They need to end the two classes of senior citizenship that they've created. They need to stop discriminating against seniors, and they have until October 29th to do it. Are they going to meet our demand, or will they continue to defend this terrible record?
So the Bloc is blackmailing Trudeau to get what he wants.
Minister of Labour and Seniors, Mr. Speaker, 14,600 seniors who are who live in my colleague's riding are today benefiting from the federal Canadian dental care program in her riding of Shefford. And yet she has risen in this House several times to vote against vulnerable seniors in her riding who are currently benefiting from this program and who are saving hundreds.
The Bloc might call an election. They want something and the government's saying you already have enough.
Member for Shefford. Well, that's not the question, and the Liberals are going to soon realize that October 29th is coming quickly. In the meantime, can they show a sign of good faith to seniors and community organizations who are working with seniors? The Liberals can commit to agree with the Government of Quebec and stop holding back funds for the Bien Vieillir Chez Soi program. It's unacceptable that a fight created by the federal government to interfere in Quebec's jurisdiction is hurting organizations that are helping Quebec's seniors. Will they come to an agreement with Quebec and stop holding seniors hostage?
They're going to call it 33 days. 33 days is how long we need.
And that's not all. That's not all, Mr. Speaker. When we brought back the age of retirement from 67 to 65 years, what did the member and her colleagues do? They voted against that, Mr. Speaker. When we increased the guaranteed income supplement, a federal program that has helped hundreds of thousands of vulnerable seniors, the Bloc and my colleague from Shefford voted against that. We increased OAS for vulnerable seniors. She and her colleagues voted against that, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. It's an ultimatum. Bill C-282 on supply management must be passed before October 29th. It should be simple. The House of Commons voted in favor of it, but it's been stuck in the Senate for over a year. Yesterday in committee, a senator asked an excellent question. And I quote, "Can you please explain how it is that this bill has been stuck in the Senate? It was supported by the vast majority of members of the democratically elected House." Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has appointed 80% of the senators. Is he going to tell them that it's time to move this bill forward?
Yeah, Bloc said October 29th. It's going to happen, man. The fact that the Liberals are saying we've done enough,
our government, of
that's
course,
huge.
supports supply management. My honourable colleague is well aware that we supported Bill C-282 because, of course, we have and always will support supply management. Unlike the Conservatives who fell shamefully behind when important funding for supply management came towards the House and they voted against it. I think my honourable colleague is fully aware we have and will continue to support supply management. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Sarnia-Lambton.
After 9 years of these NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. The NDP leader made a big deal about tearing up the supply agreement with the Liberals and then flip-flop by voting to keep this Prime Minister in power.
That's right.
The NDP leader needs to end the costly coalition with the Liberals. People can't afford to eat. Ontario food banks just posted an 8-year high in usage. Canadians need a carbon tax election. Why is the Prime Minister so afraid to have one?
The Honourable Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, we all suffer when we know that there are fellow Canadians that are struggling. We've made historic investments as a government to ensure that our social security net is strong for Canadians. Whether that's in $10 a day childcare, Mr. Speaker, whether that's restoring the retirement age to 65, Mr. Speaker. But let's not pretend that the Conservatives really care about helping Canadians, because if they did, they would be supporting these important measures that are helping.
Why is she purposely talking so slow?
Well, here's what they've really done. This NDP Liberal coalition has doubled the debt, doubled housing costs, taxed food, punished work, and unleashed crime in our streets. So instead of selling out Canadians by keeping this Prime Minister in power, the NDP leader needs to vote with common sense Conservatives for a carbon tax election. Why not let Canadians decide whether they want to have the carbon tax hiked by 61 cents a litre by the Liberals, or whether they want a government that's going to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
Throw some W's, huh? Let's support her. That was good.
Comments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the question is, why are the Conservatives so desperate for an election right now? Because they want to make sure they get out before Canadians understand that they have a hidden agenda. But, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are much smarter than that. When the Conservatives say one thing and do another, Canadians know. We trust Canadians. When will Conservatives start trusting them?
And Canadians want an election.
Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, taxes are up. Costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. The Saskatchewan Premier said the carbon tax is, quote, costing Saskatchewan's health and education systems nearly $380 million. That's money that could be used for more teachers, more doctors, and more nurses. This NDP Liberal carbon tax is literally taking away teachers and nurses from Saskatchewan. Shame on the NDP for supporting this tired Liberal government. Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister wants to cut teachers and nurses in Saskatchewan, why won't he call a carbon tax election and let Canadians decide?
The Honourable Minister for Natural.
It's going to happen. The Bloc will do it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I would encourage my Conservative colleagues to actually use facts. 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back. It is an affordability measure. People who live on modest incomes actually benefit significantly. It's also an important way of fighting climate change. And if he wants to quote Scott Moe, I would say when Scott Moe appeared here in Ottawa and talked about the price on pollution, he said he looked at doing something else and everything else was too expensive. So he wasn't going to do anything to fight climate change. I guess that's the answer of the Conservative Party of Canada.
How much money till we fix forest fires?
Mr. Speaker, veterans taking part in the Invictus Games have found themselves on the hook for medical insurance. This comes as a shock since all serving military members have theirs covered under the Canadian Armed Forces. The Liberals created this mess, and now this one veteran has had their life changed after a serious injury provided during the previous games. Will the minister admit to this mistake and extend medical coverage to all Canadian Invictus athletes for the upcoming Whistler Games, or will they continue to ignore the needs of veterans?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Invictus Games offers a very unique rehabilitation opportunity to ill and injured veterans and also for members of the Canadian Armed Forces. It is also important
I've been to the Invictus Games in Toronto a few years ago.
During the Games and also after the Games. That is why that we will continue to work with the Canadian Armed Forces, Soldier On, Invictus Games, and other stakeholders to ensure that
Shout out to Soldier On.
is always taken care of, and want to ensure this situation will be rectified before Invictus Games 2025. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shout out to Soldier On, man. They actually do quite a bit to help vets.
Courtney Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, young Canadians are in survival mode, and rates of anxiety and depression have gone through the roof with the high cost of living and youth unemployment. Many are struggling just to meet their basic needs, like food and shelter, making paying for therapy out of pocket seem like a luxury. The Liberals promise to ensure mental health is treated as a full and equal part of Canada's universal public health care system, but they have failed to deliver. When will the government finally get serious about the mental health crisis and ensure all Canadians can access the mental health care they need when they need it?
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for his question, and I say as the Minister...
We give people drugs!
But also as
That's how we help. We give people drugs, the hard stuff.
Exactly why in 2024,
We're crying out
this
loud.
year's budget, we pledged $500 million towards the Youth Mental Health Fund, Mr. Speaker, working with community service organizations across this country. Youth-led for youth in every community across this country. We want to meet young people where they're at to get the supports and the services that they need and that they deserve. This is the future of our country, and we are going to take care of them so that we build a stronger Canada together.
The Honourable Member from Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud that around the world, Canada has a reputation for helping its friends and being there for its allies. The world was rightly shocked when the Conservative Party repeatedly voted against Ukraine. But Canadians were shocked once again this week when the Deputy Conservative leader disparaged
Jugs are bad and
the German State Secretary for saying that climate change is real and Europe wants to buy clean Canadian energy. Can the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources share with this House how Canada is supporting our European allies like Germany?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the honourable member for the question. When Ukraine was invaded by Russia, we worked actively with them to support them, including providing necessary equipment to support their electricity grids, while the Conservatives chose to abandon Ukraine. When Germany...
Didn't we sell Russia a bunch of windmills?
...providing clean hydrogen and critical minerals, we said yes and worked with them on the way, and the Conservatives simply bullied German officials publicly. Providing clean energy to the world is something that will benefit Canada from a prosperity and jobs perspective, but also will enable us to help our allies around the world. The Conservative rhetoric is going to cost Canada its friends. It's going to cost Canada jobs.
House Speaker wants to mute it. Oh, he's reaching for his paper. I thought he was reaching for the button.
I know all members get passionate when it comes to questions and answers here, but we must make sure that we show a fundamental respect for all members. I know the honourable member from Calgary Signal Hill is a veteran of this and other places, and I'm certain he knows which way to make sure that the language is appropriate. The honourable member from Bay of Quinte.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of Liberal government, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up, and now tariffs are up. With softwood lumber tariffs doubling to 14.5%. Well, what's happened? Today, the Resolute Forest Products announced the closure of the Forestry and Maniwaki, Quebec sawmills, costing 280 jobs because of the tariffs. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said this was a small issue. Can the Prime Minister explain why the loss of 280 jobs is a small issue, or is he just a soft Prime Minister?
No, he's a hard Prime Minister. Hard things are hard.
Mr. Speaker,
That's a quote from Trudeau.
That the forestry sector and the workers, particularly in this sector, are tremendously important to our communities across the country. They are dedicated workers that give their all. But as as we have said, these punishing tariffs are unjustified. We've said this in the United States. In fact, indeed, I know that the United States care about building affordable homes just as we do, and these tariffs, if they were to get rid of them, will actually help us build affordable homes in this country and in the United States.
The honourable member from
hard to get rid of.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Canadian softwood lumber producers have already paid $9 billion more because of these excess tariffs since 2017. But you know what else they pay? The carbon tax. Right. The carbon tax costs hundreds of millions of dollars more that makes it uncompetitive to the U.S. industry. But you know what else the irony is? This industry plants trees. Last year alone, they planted 440 million trees, while this government's $2 billion tree program barely got off the ground. Isn't it time for a new common sense minister who's going to axe the tax, stand up for Canadians, and fight for the 400,000 jobs in the forest sector?
Yeah, man. On the friggin' Colbert show, he said, yeah, It's a little problem that we're working on.
Resources and energy.
Mr. Speaker, the question is yet another example of the Conservative Party not doing its homework and not learning the facts. As I say, on a residential basis, 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back. It is an affordability measure and an effective way to fight climate change. In terms of the plant that he is talking about, it is based in Quebec, which has its own cap and trade system. They do not pay the price on pollution.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Leflore. Mr. Speaker, this morning we learned that the Morrissey sawmill and in Maniwaki too, they'll be closing their mills. 280 workers are going to lose their jobs. And this is not the end of it. More sawmills will be closed down as the Environment Minister imposes this order that will kill a minimum of 1,400 jobs. Why do the Liberals always fail to help out forestry workers? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, I know that on the Conservative benches they don't really like science or researchers and so on, but I will quote from Louis Bélanger, a professor from Laval University, who said recently that the need for the emergency order is clear. The government is simply applying the law in the absence of an effective provincial strategy to protect this species. Another expert said that the Government of Canada's emergency order is justified and measured, especially from the point of view of science. Here on this side, Mr. Speaker, we're pro-science. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Leflore. Mr. Speaker, the workers in the forestry industry in Quebec work hard, but they are always being punished by a Liberal government propped up by the Bloc. This is a threat to 1,400 jobs, and it's still pending because the Bloc is propping up the Liberal government. We are pro-region. The Bloc is no longer a party of the regions, and we saw that recently with their election of a member in Montreal. What's it going to take for this to change? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the people I represent. I'm a member for Montreal, but perhaps the member opposite should speak to forestry workers in Quebec who said to me, and they've said in a number of public commissions, that the future of the industry and the forest depends on the health of the forests, which the Conservative Party of Canada seems incapable of understanding. The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. Quebec City is the cradle of the French language in the Americas, but the Governor General has cancelled her visit to the Pignon Bleu because she doesn't understand French 3 years after promising to learn it. The Pignon Bleus, their preparations for Ms. Simon's visit, were all for nothing. The Pignon Bleus simply thought they'd be able to express themselves in their own language, French. But Ms. Simon remains incapable of showing them this basic respect. How can the Liberals find that acceptable and justifiable? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government remains firmly committed to protecting the French language here in Canada. It's important to note, Mr. Speaker, that Her Excellency, the Governor-General, has not had the opportunity to learn. She didn't get the chance to learn French when she was young because of discrimination, and yet she's the first Indigenous woman to hold the position. She speaks an Indigenous language that she's very proud of. We expect her to continue studying French. Linguistic duality is at the core of our identity as Canadians. The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou. La Pointe de l'Île, rather. The Governor General has had 3 years to learn French. Taxpayers have even paid for $28,000 worth of lessons.
Jesus!
Obviously, she's not trying hard enough. But why would she? She's already got the job. History is repeating itself for Francophones. Today we're talking about Mary Simon, but it was the same thing when Air Canada hired Michael Rousseau. Will the Liberals finally admit that when they appoint Anglophones who promise to learn French, The jokes on francophones. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada is a bilingual country and Canadians expect their leaders to be able to express themselves in both official languages. The Governor-General was unable to learn French when she was young because of discrimination in Canada at the time. We expect her to continue her studies and her learning of French because linguistic duality goes to the heart of our identity as Canadians, proud of our bilingualism here in Canada.
The Honourable Member from Oxford.
They're forcing someone to speak French.
NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up, and now visits to Cambridge food banks are also up, nearly 20%. The Liberals' carbon tax scam has forced our seniors and our families to rely on food banks for their survival. The NDP continue to prop up their political masters and deny Canadians that carbon tax election they so desperately want. Why is the Prime Minister so afraid of a carbon tax election, and why won't he call one now?
It's going to get called after the end of October.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the opportunity to talk about the childcare numbers that are up, Mr. Speaker.
Literally,
This week we saw
no one asked.
Comox Valley Schools announce a new childcare facility with 108 new spots for children there, Mr. Speaker. We also heard in Winnipeg, the Splash Childcare Centre, an additional 40 new spots for children. That's 248 new spots for kids here in our country. High quality, affordable care. That's what's up, Mr. Speaker.
That wasn't even a question.
Langley Aldergrove.
After 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and now time is up. Yet the NDP leader and his colleagues voted yesterday to keep the Prime Minister in power so that he can quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre, the carbon tax that drives up the cost of everything and is driving a record number of British Columbians to food banks. Why is this Prime Minister so afraid of a carbon tax election? Why won't he let Canadians decide?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday what we saw is that the House voted non-confidence in the Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada.
L'honorable député de Mégan.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, we can no longer wait after 9 years of this Prime Minister with the Liberal Bloc coalition. 72% of young people feel that they're less well off than the previous generation. The Liberal Bloc coalition is supporting a government that turns its back on young people. A government that, when are they going to build? Why not let them vote for a government that will build housing and fix the budget? Honourable Minister, thank you. Mr. Speaker, what's good for Quebecers, what's not good for Quebecers and including young ones, is the insults and petty partisanship that the Conservative leader does day in, day out. And he knocks investments that young Quebecers need. The Conservative leader not only calls everyone incompetent, but he also would rip up the deal we signed with the government of Quebec, $1.8 billion to build tens of thousands of affordable housing units in Quebec.
Tous les députés
All members on both sides, please. Order.
At least he's not muting.
For Alfred Pelland. Mr. Speaker, our government has introduced a plan to build 25,000 new homes on federal Crown land by 2031. The Conservative leader and his housing plan would see federal buildings sold off to the highest builder with no guarantee of affordable housing. Can the Minister of Public Works explain to the people of Alfred Pelland how federal lands will be used to create affordable housing all across the country? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Mr. Speaker, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It takes a second hand to count the number of units, affordable units, that were built under the Conservative leader's tenure as minister responsible for housing. That is incompetence for you. We have created 8,000 affordable housing units all across Quebec. And so we don't need any lectures from Conservatives.
The honourable member from Calgary, Forest Lawn.
9 years of this Liberal NDP soft on crime coalition, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, extortions up, times up. In Calgary, disturbing stories emerged of armed criminals committing extortions and kidnappings against families and businesses. This Liberal NDP coalition voted against Conservative Deputy Leader Bill C-381 to crack down on extortions. Instead, the coalition made it easier for criminals to get bail and re-offend. Why is the freedom of criminals more important to this government than protecting extortion victims?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, every single measure that we've made, including investing in police to combat guns and gang units, guess what, Mr. Speaker? Conservatives voted against and are against. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, when they were in power, they actually cut the CBSA, the RCMP, who did this very work, who worked with our provincial and municipal counterparts in policing. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to addressing crime, Conservatives are all about cuts and slogans, and we're about action.
The honourable member from Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, 9 years ago, we warned the government about joining the Beijing-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and so did the Obama-Biden administration. Last year, news about the Chinese Communist Party's infiltration of the bank forced the government to initiate a boycott and to begin a review. The boycott is now 15 months, and Canada still has its shares, and Beijing still has the nearly $250 million that this government gave the bank. So, when will the government release the review, dump the shares, and get the money back?
There you go.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as soon as the minister heard about these very serious allegations, she took action. The minister announced an immediate halt, Mr. Speaker, to all Canadian government-led activity at the bank while we conducted a review of the allegations. In December, we announced an expansion of that review in partnership with some of our closest international partners. The Department of Finance continues to review the matter, as well as Canadians' participation in the organization. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, taxes are up, costs are up, crime's up, time's up.
Hey, welcome back, big fella.
He's proud of his preparations for the catastrophic Jasper wildfire, but 1/3 of Jasper was destroyed, $1 billion in damages, and 2,000 people are homeless. This isn't something to be proud of, and yet this is the record of failure that this NDP party supports. Banff, Lake Louise, and Jasper are still in danger. It's time for this minister to take responsibility for his failure so we can prepare for the next fire. Will he?
Let's go, Mr. Lloyd. Been a while.
The Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, this member should be ashamed of himself.
Shut up and go climb the CN Tower.
Taken out of context, emails between Parks Canada officials who were debating which measures to use to fight fires as opposed to not fighting fires at all. One of those Parks Canada employees has received death threats.
Oh my God.
Since they put this online, they should be ashamed of themselves, Mr. Speaker.
Oh my God! Oh my God! You guys are ruining Canada. Yeah, death threats, obviously, nobody condones that.
Colleagues.
Hey, I'll take the shush over the mute.
Member from Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, today is World Contraceptive Day, an important day to remember that too often contraception is not accessible due to political ideology. On this side of the House, we proudly supported Pharmacare, which is providing free contraception to Canadians. Can the Minister of Mental Health and Addiction please tell this House what else the government is doing to expand access to universal contraceptives and support the right of women to choose across Canada?
The
The Honourable Minister for Mental Health and Addictions.
Mr. Speaker, we will always defend the freedom for women's right to choose.
What's going on here?
Time
You see this
have
in the
shown
back?
they will claw back women's rights from presenting backdoor legislation to prevent access to abortion. Abortion services are voting against a woman's freedom of access to contraceptives. We will.
The only back door is between Trudeau and Macron.
Women can't do with their bodies. Certainly not fly to Florida on all expense paid trips to meet with anti-choice politicians. They need to be honest with Canadians about their hidden agenda because we stand on this side for women's rights.
How expensive was the bathtub?
The Honourable Member from Vancouver East.
Canadians are appalled by the Liberals' failure to help family members in Gaza get to safety and reunite.
Should have called an election, Jenny.
In Canada. From the beginning, the government's initiative was marred in red tape and roadblocks. Precious time was wasted and loved ones continue to be killed. Israel's brutal siege and bombardment continue and is further escalating in the region. What concrete action has this government taken to ramp up diplomatic efforts and collaborate with NGOs on the ground to help bring loved ones to safety?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we can all agree as a House the best way to make sure that Gazans are safe is to make sure that there is a ceasefire so that we can continue to work with people to get the people here that have connections to family members that are looking to be reunited with them. We will continue as a government to work with the authorities on the ground, whether we agree with their positions or not, to make sure those people are kept safe, and we'll continue to work to make sure those people get to Canada in an expeditious fashion. Thank you.
We got stuff to worry about here.
From Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, education is a provincial domain. Still, MPs would agree the safety of children is a concern for all Canadians. Does the government support Ontario's criticism of the abhorrent action of the Toronto District School Board using students as pawns for a foreign protest that hijacked learning about Indigenous peoples and their efforts to get clean water? Mr. Speaker, activist teachers on a TDSB-sanctioned field trip compromised the safety of children and violated the trust of parents. Will the government stand up to deceit and hatred?
What did Kevin Vaughn vote for yesterday? Anyone know?
Floor where they're not recognized. The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's a question for the Ontario government. But on this side of the House, what we've been focused on is ensuring that every Indigenous child in this country has a fair chance to succeed in their educational journey. And in fact, Mr. Speaker,
oh, he voted yay
office 10 years ago
for the non-confidence
underfunding of First Nations education systems, so that education rates were appalling across this country, leading to First Nations students not being able to reach their full potential. We've changed that, Mr. Speaker, and we're proud of that.
Independent MP Kevin Vaughn did vote in favor.
Brings to an end another
of the vote of non-confidence.
I see that there's some members who are rising on a point of order. I recognize the Honourable Member from Edmonton Strathcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while we appreciate that you have acknowledged and ruled that the Leader of the Opposition was out of order last Thursday, we are confused by the mixed messaging that you've sent to this House. The Leader was out of order and yet has still been allowed to participate in debate, and today have 5 questions in question period. The regular practice is that a member isn't recognized to speak until they have withdrawn, and that is not being applied, and we have some concerns about the mixed message.
On behalf of Canadians,
I would also like to remind the Speaker of the very serious matter that was raised yesterday regarding the member for Fort Saskatchewan Sherwood Park. We are still waiting for him to withdraw and apologize for his homophobic and disgusting comment.
What was the homophobic and disgusting comment? Garnett, genius is there. He might stand. He's standing. Here we go. Garnett is up. He's the one that's accused of making that comment. He muted the mic. You son of a gun. You son of a gun, bro. So they're trying to figure out right now. Garnett Genius is standing up. He's just out of frame on the right here. Now he sat back down. He sat back down, but he was standing. He's the one that's accused of making the homophobic comment yesterday geared towards Justin Trudeau, where apparently he said something about a bathtub.
A member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, is rising on his feet, and I will recognize him in due turn. But I understand on the same point of order so that the member doesn't have to get up twice. The Honourable Member, Parliamentary Secretary, for the Government House Leader.
Pierre came back in.
I would just want to add a couple thoughts to it. We have to put into proper perspective when a member is requested by the Speaker's chair to withdraw the remarks. As it's been pointed out, they are required to do so. If they do not, speakers have not identified them until they do the apology. We can give ample examples of that. We cannot.
Mark Garrison knows about apologizing, right?
Of a member of Parliament that he is allowed, or he or she is allowed, to violate the rules, and then it is the political party that pays the consequence. That's in fact what we saw here. There was the Conservative Party that lost the 3 questions. There was no penalty to the member from the leader of the Conservative Party.
Come on, bring on Andrew Scheer. Use your law degree, buddy, or your lawyer background. Come on, Conservatives, pull out the book.
I'm going to move, before I move to the member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, because I can understand his motivation in wanting to stand up, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, as well as to the member from Edmonton Strathcona, the Speaker has made a ruling on this decision. I would encourage all members to read it very carefully. As you know, when there is something that contravenes Article 18, the Speaker has some discretion as to what to do. And so the Speaker is certainly considered this question, has been in contact with, and had many discussions. And I would encourage the honourable members to read the session. If they wish to challenge the ruling of this chair, they know the procedure in which to provide. The honourable member.
Speaker made a ruling.
Member from Winnipeg's
not retracting.
On a point of order.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to draw your attention for the benefit of the House to some language I've heard used that I think is becoming of this House and of members in this House. And I have no interest in ascribing blame or pointing fingers, so I'm not going to name names, Mr. Speaker. However, there has been reference over the course of debate in the House in the past few days in particular to pagers exploding, walkie-talkies exploding, reference to perhaps members in this House themselves having that type of technology, which is an obvious reference to the conflict that is happening in the Middle East right now, Mr. Speaker. I heard another comment from a member today and I quote, "Did you get a thank you letter from Hezbollah?" This is to an Israeli member of this House who has lost loved ones, innocent loved ones in the conflict. We have other members of this chamber from all sides, Mr. Speaker, who have lost innocent people by virtue of the conflict that is taking place. I, again, am not interested in being partisan. I simply want to draw your attention to this and call upon the better angels in this House to conduct themselves on behalf of Canadians and one another with compassion and dignity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre.
They're just being annoying.
Thoughtful intervention, and I'll take this opportunity to remind all members of the House that the most important thing that we can do, despite pursuing the interests of our constituents passionately and pointedly, but is to make sure that there is a fundamental respect between all members. This is a point that the chair has made, that chair occupants have made at several occasions. J'encourage tous les députés.
I mean, pagers were blown up, and so were phones. So, like,
to be nicer.
It's kind of crazy, no matter how you look at it.
So that we can have.
They're being technical. They're being annoying. They're being persistent. They're going by the exact rules. I can't blame the Liberals for taking this opportunity to take their shot. But here we go. Here's the apology, potentially.
On a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say briefly that, as members know, the NDP whip in particular has a history of making false and defamatory comments about me, and this is no exception. It's very clear.
Let him talk. Let him cook.
Colleagues, if you please can keep your comments to yourself so that the chair can listen to this point of order being raised by the member from Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, who who was referenced in some other point of orders, I think it is fair to allow him to raise his point of order uninterrupted to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was an exchange yesterday in question period about extravagant spending by the government. $9 million spent on a luxury condo on Billionaires Row. Now, the leader of the opposition asked a question.
Speaker, I can't hear him. I can't hear him. I'm right beside him. I can't hear him.
False and defamatory comments have been made about.
Shut the Liberals up!
A response. I'll provide a response. The leader of the opposition pointed out $9 million spent on this extravagant condo and identified a number of luxury features associated with that condo, including an extremely luxurious bathtub. Following that, the Prime Minister made no comment whatsoever about those features. Instead, the Prime Minister spoke about the kinds of international engagement that the government does. And as the Hansard clearly...
Colleagues.
Shut them up!
Colleagues,
Shut them up! Let them cook.
Please, if I'm going to ask...
Garnett's leaning into it. He ain't apologizing for his shit.
I'm going to ask the honourable member, please, to get to his point, because it's very important.
He's claiming it was defamatory.
Perceived as engaging in debate.
And taken out of context.
Mr. Speaker, false and defamatory comments have been made about me. Yep. I'm providing a response, and hopefully members will benefit from reviewing the context of what happened.
Yep.
$9 million were spent on a luxury condo on Billionaires Row in New York. In a question from the Leader of the Opposition, various luxury...
Okay, colleagues, if the member has been... Colleagues.
Wow. They're not going to let him do it. He muted the mic. You freaking son of a gun. Sorry for yelling. I can't help myself, man. This is obviously an extremely controversial topic. The Liberals, Justin Trudeau, the press have run with the narrative that he made homophobic comments about the bathtub. And he's addressing it right now, for those that are just tuning in, saying that it was not a homophobic comment. The Liberals have spent $9 million of taxpayers' money on a luxury condo in New York.
So I'm going to invite the...
which includes a very expensive...
The honourable member from Saskatchewan. He was almost there. I'd ask him, please just immediately get to the point so that we can address the allegations which were made against the honourable member, and then we can move on in the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we've heard a few words said in this House about bullying. I'm trying to provide an explanation with context.
And they're bullying him.
These are false allegations that have been made against me, and I will persist in doing that. So following questions from the Leader of the Opposition about a $9 million luxury condo purchased by the government, and in particular identifying among the features of that condo a luxury bathtub, the Prime Minister ignored reference to those features and instead spoke about the engagement done by the government internationally. Right. Mm-hmm. And the Hansard shows the exchange, and many of the comments about made on Twitter about what was allegedly said don't reflect what's in the Hansard. The Hansard notes, does he engage with them in the bathtub? The point of that comment is to illustrate that, of course, meetings don't take place in a bathtub. A luxurious bathtub has nothing to do with meetings. The Prime Minister's answer had nothing to do with the questions, but it had nothing to do with sex. I wasn't thinking about sex at all. Never mind.
Holy crap! How's he getting himself out of this one? Holy shit! This is tricky.
The honourable member from James Bay, Timmins James Bay, is rising on a point of order.
Speaker, I'll keep my remarks to a minute. I hope you'll let me finish. TA, we saw the tape. I've listened to the tape. What we didn't hear was an apology. So I just want to understand that the Speaker's saying that a Conservative member can make a homosexual slur against the Prime Minister of the country and it's okay and he can defend himself for good 10 minutes speaking. Is that the standard that we have in the House? We would like to know that that's the standard that this Speaker is bringing, because it very much clarifies where we go from here.
The more Garnett says, the crazier this gets. The more he says, the crazier it gets. He's already said he wasn't referring to sex. It was taken out of context. It's defamatory.
On point of order, I see that the honourable member from Don Valley West is rising. I hope this will be a I hope that this will be germane to the issue at hand, and then the chair will go back and consider this and come back to the House if necessary. The honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, a point of order was raised, and I'm a little confused. So it's a true point of order because the member from Edmonton Strathcona has raised essentially a new point of order, but referred to yesterday's point of order. However, to be victimized once in this House is sufficient. To be re-victimized again by someone pretending, and we all heard it, and it is in Hansard, what was said. It is a homophobic slur. There were two of them, and they were both absolutely personal. And if the Consul General in New York were a woman, if she was treated that way in this House would be outraged.
Right on.
Every member of this House should be outraged because it was a homophobic slur, and I want you to take it into consideration.
Right on.
Are you engaging with me in meetings in the bathtub? I mean, was it a homophobic slur? Was it not homophobic? I guess it depends on your interpretation and what the pun is supposed to be intended. Inherently, it's a pretty surface level comment. It's not discussing. It's not. There's no sexual
colleagues
comments made with that.
I appreciate the points of view raised by the members. I appreciate the honourable member from getting up and offering his perspective. The chair is going to
review it.
Obviously, take this matter under advisement, but I will just say this, which I think is really important, is how it is very necessary that when members are not, one of the best ways to avoid these kind of situations is to making sure that members don't speak out of turn. And then that way, we don't have a situation where there is different interpretations as to what was said. I thank all honourable members for rising on this issue. The chair will go back and consider this and come back to the House if necessary. Thank you.
So it's settled. Nothing is to come of it.
Order, the honourable member from Winnipeg Centre.
I have real, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I have real issue with this. Because on two occasions, once before the House rose,
it's not
you let a Conservative member liken somebody's racial background for criminally
The honourable member is raising an issue which was brought up.
He just said it's done.
Chair in a decision that was made.
She's still talking.
I'll invite the honourable member.
He's censoring her.
And
you can hear her yelling, and he doesn't care. They're talking over each other, and I'm talking above them. The circle of life. He mutes the mic, of course. Wow, so this is getting out of control. The NDP and the Liberals, for those that need to be caught up to speed on what's going on right now, they are trying to attack Garnett Genius for these alleged false accusations of making a homophobic slur or comment in regards to the $9 million condo that us taxpayers are paying for Justin Trudeau. There's like a $5,000 copper bathtub. If you're thinking what I'm thinking at this point, this is absolutely insane. You would be on the side of common sense. This is absolutely insane. He said, "Are you having meetings in the bathtub?" Is it homophobic? Nah, not really. Not really at all. It's a pretty harmless comment to make, but it's been brought up in circles.
I wish to inform the House that
moving on
will now be reset.
Honestly,
is the honourable member from Edmonton Strathcona rising on the same point of order? The chair has already given his opinion, and I invite the honourable member.
Yeah.
The honourable member is an experienced member, and she understands the process which is available to her.
2 tubs, 1 Canadian. That's a good comment, Austin.
Afraid not. Thank you.
All right.
I wish to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset. Members using their earpiece at this time will have to readjust the volume.
He's moving on. That's it. Case
will now be reset.
Closed. He shut it down.
Earpiece at this time. We'll have to readjust the volume.
He shut it down. Holy smokes. All right.
And now it is time for the Thursday question, la déclaration hebdomadaire.
Speaker, and it being Thursday, I was...
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there because now they're going on to a different topic. So just to summarize, the House Speaker is not allowing any more points of order to happen in regards to this alleged false accusatory and defamatory accusation directed towards Garnet Genius of a homophobic slur or comment that was made about this whole bathtub debacle, right? This is actually a rare occurrence where the House Speaker is shutting something down that is kind of detrimental to the Conservatives. This is something, and now that we've got Andrew Scheer on screen, I'm gonna keep playing the stream. Don't worry, folks. But I'm just like making an end point to this situation that just happened. This is something that Andrew Scheer, who's the lawyer for the Conservatives, not like the official lawyer, but he's got that law instinct and maybe even law degree. I'm not exactly sure on that. He should have brought this up yesterday with a point of order, and they should have shut it down yesterday because the Liberals have had now 24 hours to run with the rhetoric. They ran to the media. They ran to social media saying Conservatives are making homophobic slurs. You know that that's false. I know that that's false. But normies out there that are watching the news that just see the headlines, they now think that a lot of them think hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of people are now under the impression, without ever being corrected, that the Conservatives are making homophobic slurs. So I'm a little disappointed personally that Andrew Scheer or other Conservative MPs didn't shut this down yesterday, and they let the Liberals and the House and the press run with this rhetoric for now 24 hours. And you saw, like, if they did this yesterday, if they did this point of order, and if they addressed it yesterday, if Garnett stood up and said it wasn't about sex, it was about how meetings don't happen in the bathtub, yet we spent so much on a bathtub, which would resemble, a meeting room, right? Like that would have been the best time to address it, was yesterday. And it's just a little disappointing, but nonetheless, it got shut down. It got shut down. House Speaker says no more. That's it. So there you go, folks. There you go. We're going to continue on with the weekly statement here in a moment from Andrew Scheer. I see that since question period has ended, there's been a rise in people that have joined the stream. So that's pretty cool. If you haven't yet already, I would super appreciate it for you guys to smash that like button and subscribe. It would really help the channel. All right, let's continue the weekly statement here.
Was hoping that the government House leader could update the House as to the business for the rest of this week and into the following week. Or if she and her cabinet colleagues have finally seen the light and decided not to sit next week and instead give Canadians the carbon tax election that they so desperately want, so they can vote in a government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
Bravo! The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the only people who are desperate for an election are the Conservative members of Parliament. Everybody else in this House wants to get to work, so we'll look forward to doing that next week. The only people that are afraid, Mr. Speaker, are the Conservative MPs, because they know the longer this House sits, the more their hidden agenda is exposed and the more Canadians don't want to vote for them. So, Mr. Speaker, this afternoon we will be dedicated to the Conservative Opposition Day motion. Tomorrow we will consider Bill C-76, an act to amend Canada's National Parks Act, which supports the people of Jasper following the devastating wildfires this summer. As per the special order adopted last week following one round of debate, this important bill will be deemed adopted at all remaining stages and sent to the Senate. Next Tuesday shall be an allotted day. On Wednesday, we will call the vote on Ways and Means motion number 26 concerning capital gains. This confidence vote was scheduled to take place yesterday, but unfortunately the Conservative members of Parliament blocked it. I think it's because they didn't want to lose two confidence motions in a row. I can understand it's embarrassing for them. It seems like they didn't want to have that happen. They have also blocked debate on substantive legislation with concurrent debates on 5 out of 9 days since the House returned. Madam Speaker, the government has a responsibility to ensure the orderly continuance of the work of the House, notwithstanding the efforts of the Conservatives to disrupt this important work at every opportunity. And I will reiterate the fact that there are 3 parties, not the Conservatives, that are here to work for Canadians, and we look forward to continuing that important work next week. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, what are we doing? Okay. Of the day.
Ordre du jour, ordre émanant du gouvernement, reprise du débat sur une motion d'opposition concernant la...
Opposition motion with regards to confidence in the House in the name of Mr. Berthold, the honourable member for Lévis-Lotbinière.
Oh yeah, are they tabling a new
duty of calming things down?
Vote of non-confidence?
Lives with a good paycheck and more money in their pockets. Madam Speaker, the previous Conservative government was consistent and did what was necessary to meet the needs expressed by Canadians. Today, people are living with the consequences of the bad choices made by a reckless...
Take care, Canadian abroad.
...Liberal government.
All right, folks. I'm just going to mute it there. I'm going to read out some of these super chats, eh? We got to catch up. There's quite a few. We got Joe Uber with the $10. How do we get this Daffy Duck out? Thank you for that. I mean, I think once I table an official petition that's recognized by government, depending on how popular it gets, we might actually see something happen, right? But I apparently need a federal MP to assist me in that, so that's something I'm going to be working on. Elfred with the $2. Dingus really can't do that liberal tactic. I appreciate that. Dad Talks with a $6.99. Why can't the people vote for non-confidence? People vote for an election. The government votes for non-confidence because it's lack of confidence within other parties. It's just how our parliamentary system is set up. Dustin with the $5. I emailed my MP to express my displeasure yesterday. You all should too. Let our voices be heard. That's a good one. That's a good one. I agree in that one. Shauna with the $5. If you can't afford food, what the heck does dental coverage help with? Don't need teeth if you have no food to eat. Yep. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people can agree on that one. Thank you for that $5. Javon with a $13.99. Why does the NDP keep propping up Liberals so they can keep making housing more expensive? I mean, they had an opportunity to vote and they chose wrongfully. So we're gonna have to wait and see how this kind of plays with the bloc, right? They said after October 29th, if they don't get what they want, they're gonna call an election. Ohana with the $5. It's disgusting how these smug POS libs tell us that Canadians want them strangling us and spitting in our mouths. Pierre 4 p.m. And that's absolutely right. Thank you for that. Dan with $5. I do not want Liberals telling me what I want or need. A lot of people are thinking that exact same thing, Dan. Do with the $2. Boohoo O'Connell. Yeah, that was a good one when she just started, spewing a bunch of nonsense. Shauna with the $2. The government offers vets maid, bro. I understand that the government does. I think I know what you were talking about when I said shout out to Soldier On. They're not a government body. Moneyball with the $2. Another non-confidence vote. Yes, Pierre is tabling another vote of non-confidence. He's just going to keep doing it until it goes his way, I guess. Jim with the $6.99. Why ever so often does your video freeze? Does it really? Is it Trudeau interfering? I don't see that on my end. I don't see that in the software. I don't see that on the stream. I do have the stream pulled up. So I don't know. Maybe other people can attest to that. But I felt like today was pretty seamless. I didn't see any bugs or anything. And when it shows my stream health, it says it's excellent across the board. So that might be you. But if other people validate in the comments, then maybe it's a mixture. Shauna with the $2. Where is Sneak It In Day? Oh my goodness, Shauna. Let's see. Oh my God, guys, where is the bottom of this? The Cryptic Stench with 279 petition. Stand by what you said. Enough is enough. Yeah, Cryptic, I am. But there's no point in doing just like a regular like Facebook or change.org petition, right? Because the government doesn't recognize it. It doesn't matter if there's a bajillion votes. The government recognizes petitions that are done by a certain way. And there's a process involved in that. So absolutely, I fully intend on doing that. It just takes a little bit of time. That's all. I have to get an actual MP to like co-sign it, to table it, basically. Because we could see on the House floor people reading a petition that I started that you all can sign. Like, it's absolutely insane how this process works. But if it's successfully done or done the right way, then we're cool. Brian with the $2 US, 2 Liberals, 1 tub. Yeah, don't give Garnett any more quotes. Let's stay out of trouble. Brett with the 279, 4.1K watching, only 1.3K likes. Like the video. Brett gave a super chat. You guys are funny, eh? You guys give super chats for the comments to stand out more of saying like and share, everybody. It's so funny. You could just say it for free in the comments, but thank you everybody for that support. AEville, new merch, Sunshine Baby Oil. I don't know about that, but thank you for the support. Savage Silence with the $4. Don't forget to register to vote. Absolutely. Do not forget to register to vote. Rachel with the 20 and the last super chat of the stream. Google and sign E5024. It's a no confidence petition. Say no again to help Pierre now. Closed on Tuesday. All right, cool. Apparently one already is going forward. I'm going to promote obviously the one that I have and that I can get pushed forward because that would be pretty crazy to have a government, the Canadian government, recognize a petition that I started. So I'm going to wait for that one. But thank you, Rachel, for that super chat and the awareness of the petition that already started. All right, folks, that seems to be the end of everything. Thanks to everybody for, the people that have gone above and beyond with the super chats and the memberships and the stickers and all that stuff. Very, very much appreciated. There was a couple of PayPal donations that came through while on the stream, but there was no messages attached to it. I don't know if that was intentional, but thank you to those individuals as well. This is where we're going to end it. Thanks, everybody, for liking the streams. I see we're about 1,500 likes, so those who haven't yet would really appreciate it if you took the time right now to smash the like button. It's honestly the best way to support the stream and the channel for free, right? Liking and subscribing and commenting, engaging. So thanks, everybody, the community, for being here, for participating. Fridays, tomorrow, we don't normally stream, so don't really hold your breath. And on Monday, it is Truth and Reconciliation Day. So they are not in, they're not in Parliament on Monday. It's a holiday for Truth and Reconciliation. If I'm not mistaken, let me just double check. What month are we? September 26th. So they're in tomorrow. They're not in on Monday, the 30th. September 30th, they are not in. So I might stream if there's like a committee or something like that. But tomorrow, I'm not streaming. I don't stream. So pay attention for the videos. Go over to MSB and pay attention for those videos. Also, I will be cutting, this up and putting them on the other channels. So pay attention to all those other channels. When you go to the homepage of this channel of House of Canada, or any of the other channels, you see all of my affiliated channels. So if you're looking for the other channels, you can just find them all in one place. Peace and love, everybody. Thanks for all the support. Today was another good stream, and we will see you guys back on Monday or Tuesday for another.